Hi, welcome to Position Offset. I'm Derek, and today we're going to be talking about the PlayStation 5 Pro and do we need one? Why would you want one? Let's talk about it. The PS5 Pro is most likely coming out later this year. It's been leaked and rumored so many times now that it almost seems like a definite possibility, and there seems to be a chance that it's even going to come out this week, finally, after all these years of speculation. Rumors are saying that we might get the state of play this week, and maybe that's when they'll announce it. We'll have to see. But the question that seems to be on everybody's mind is, why should I even care? That's what I'm going to be talking about today, kind of explaining why it matters, its significance in the gaming world, even if you don't plan on buying one. And so, according to the rumors, the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to have a GPU that's about not quite twice as big, but significantly larger than the original GPU inside the PS5 in terms of the number of compute units. This is going to allow it to do a lot more in terms of rasterization, but particularly we're going to see huge improvements in ray tracing. This is the place where they seem to be really focusing on the improvements. Some people are saying we may see 3, maybe even 4 times the performance increase that what we saw on the original PlayStation base model. But in terms of CPU, we're going to get a much smaller improvement. It's only going to be about, I think, like a 10% increase, the rumors are saying, in terms of actual frequency that it runs at. But the bigger thing about that is the caches are also supposedly going to double. That will actually probably be a much bigger improvement there compared to the little tiny clock bump we're going to get. And then when it comes to RAM and storage and other parts of the system, those don't seem to be changed at all. It's pretty much going to be the same PlayStation. So it's mainly a graphics improvement, right? That's what the Pro brand means. That's what it meant back with the PS4, and that's what it means now. You're getting the higher tier graphics card. It's like if you were a PC gamer and you were having, say, in this case, I guess the 7700, and you're bumping up to a 7900, right? More or less is the kind of thing that you need to be thinking about here. Now, it's not actually that big of a jump, probably, as that example I just gave. People debate online about exactly what equivalent GPU is, and I'm not going to get into that today because that's not really important for the purpose of this video. The thing I want to talk about is, why do we even care? Why do we need that bigger GPU? What's the point of it all, right? Now, one of the main reasons I wanted to make this video is I see a lot of confusion and hate on the internet about this PS5 Pro, even as a concept. It's people asking like, well, I don't want one. I don't think I need a better PlayStation. Isn't the current one good enough? All these kind of things you see them all over the place, especially here on YouTube in the comment threads. But if you don't want one, don't buy one. It's a Pro model. You don't have to buy it. It's completely optional. You can still play the base model. If you don't want the Pro, then don't get it. It's as simple as that. But all of that aside, the thing I want to express today is, why would somebody want to get one? Why do I want one? I've been terribly excited about this ever since day one of any rumor or anything that came out about it, particularly because I don't think the PS5 is good enough. It's a great system, but we can do better. I mean, just look at what's available on PC right now. I'm not a PC gamer. I'm not interested in it, sorry. I like console games. I like the experience. And so I would love to have, a high-end experience, but from my console. And I know many other people feel the same way. And then for people who say it's too soon, we haven't even put the base model to its limits yet. I don't know what to tell you. The PS4 Pro came out 3 years after the PS4 did, and we're already in the 4th year of the PS5 now. So it's actually late, not early. And once again, if you don't want it, then don't get it. Or if you don't think it's time yet, wait for it. And so what does that PS5 Pro get for gamers that are interested in such a device? Well, primarily graphics, better graphics, and specifically next generation lighting, which is going to be ray tracing. It's going to be global illumination. You've got systems like Lumen and Unreal 5 that give us some amazing stuff on the base model, but they have to disable the hardware abilities. They have to just use it in software mode, which is pretty good and maybe good enough, some might say, but it's definitely got flaws. And to get the best possible picture quality, we're going to need that hardware ray tracing to get rid of things like light leak. Obviously, reflections are going to look much, much better. There are hundreds of videos, especially those by places like Digital Foundry, that show what the difference is and why it matters if you need to see. But even though a lot of games are using Lumen, not every game is. Some have their own ray tracing setup, like the Northlight engine and the RE engine, and countless others, because they're just going to keep adding this feature to every game eventually because it's a huge boon for developers. When you introduce true lighting systems that actually mimic the real world with physics, very simplified but simulated photons bouncing around the room, you eliminate the need to bake lighting. You just allow the artists to make things much more quickly. You can speed up the artist's workflow dramatically by not making them have to wait over and over again every time they make some kind of little small tweak to the way a scene looks. The speed at which games are made today is incredibly slow. They used to be able to make games in like a year, 2 years used to be pretty standard back 30 years ago. Now games are much simpler. Their graphics are much simpler. Now they're much more complex. And the more complexity we add to these scenes, the more realism, the more detail we get. That's more time that has to be spent by an artist building these things and placing them and making sure they look right together. And the lighting is a key part of that. So if we want to see more games than we've been seeing so far in this generation, we need to speed up the development process for our developers. Now, with all that in mind, to get these kind of ray traced or lumen powered experiences in the modern games that are finally starting to come out this year, it's meaning that a lot of these games are having to run at 30 frames a second, and that's just not good enough for most gamers. It's not good enough for me. I need at least 60. 120 would be great too, but we're not going to be able to get that from the base models. That's why we need a pro model, so that we can get this level of fidelity, this quality of graphics, true next generation graphics, or current generation, because we're in the 4th year once again of this generation, Gen 9 here. But yeah, to get these experiences like Hellblade 2 that just came out, or the Matrix Awakens demo from years ago showing us what it could have been like 3 years ago. It's just now coming to fruition, these games that are actually taking advantage of all these features and showing what the consoles can do. But it's also showing that the consoles that we have just can't do it well enough. They almost can do it. They can almost handle ray trace games, but to get them running at 60, you've got to scale stuff way back. And if we want 60 FPS to be standard again, then we may have to, as gamers, pony up the cash to get more powerful systems. And in addition to that, there's also resolution. There's some of these games that are running at less than 1080p internally and then being scaled up to 4K, and they're blurry as hell. When we've got, things like FSR, DLSS in the PC side, but they only can take us so far. We need higher internal resolutions, and that's another thing that these consoles, or that the PS5 Pro will give us. Obviously, Microsoft is not making a Pro this generation, it seems pretty clear at this point, but instead of that, they're just going to go ahead and skip to the next generation, probably about 2 years from now, is what the rumors are saying at least. And so these consoles are going to keep progressing. They're going to keep getting more powerful. You're going to have to keep buying new ones. That's part of console ownership. It's not a box you buy and it can just play every game that comes out from that point forward. That's never been the deal. So, if you want the best graphics, the most impressive physics simulations, even, like the Pro model of the PS4 would have certain features that weren't available on the base model PS4, and they weren't always graphics. Sometimes you would have smoke effects that were using particle physics and stuff that the base system just couldn't keep up with. So it's not even just about graphics here. And even in the space of ray tracing, it's not always about graphics. You can use the ray acceleration to accelerate acoustics, sounds bouncing around the room. They can simulate how sound waves propagate through the room with ray tracing. It's not even always about graphics when it comes to ray tracing. And that is where the PS5 Pro is going to really excel, is in the ray tracing department. AMD kind of cheaped out on ray tracing, to be honest here. RDNA 1 didn't even have ray tracing. RDNA 2 had it, and that's what they're using in the consoles, or really it's a combination of 1 and 2. It's not even full-fledged 2 inside the base PS5. But now we're looking at presumably a hybrid once again of RDNA 3 and RDNA 4. And presumably RDNA 4 is going to bring some pretty impressive improvements to ray tracing. Finally, AMD has been playing catch up for a while now, and it's about time they stepped it up a notch. Hopefully that's what we're going to see here, and hopefully that's what the PS5 Pro means, not just for console gamers, but for PC gamers that are looking to buy the next generation of GPUs from them whenever they come out. And so really, if we look at the big picture, the PS5 Pro, even if you're not getting one, it's going to have effects throughout the entire gaming industry, because the PlayStation, when developers are making games, like AAA games especially, they usually target the PlayStation first and then port it to the other machines. Now, unlike in the past, it doesn't happen kind of like a stair step. A lot of this is happening simultaneously, but the core primary target that they are spending the majority of their time on, at least in the early days and up until they get to about beta phase, is probably the PlayStation. And now they can also target the PlayStation Pro. Hopefully they will target it first and then downscale the game to the Pro. We could see limitations, as we saw with the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, where the PS4 Pro games are not really exploiting their full power because they're PS4 games with some enhancements. And I'm fine with that. But if we really want to see the games take full advantage of it, they need to target the PS5 Pro primarily and then downscale some of the settings, maybe some of the different resolutions of things or what have you, to get the PS5 also running well. The same way that, a lot of games target the Xbox Series X first, and then they scale it down to work on the S. Now, does that mean that the PS5 is going to start getting subpar game experiences because of that? I really hope not. I don't think there's any reason that it should. It's not impossible, just to be honest. It could, but I don't see it happening, because if we look back at the prior generation, the PS5 Pro is a niche device. It is not something for everybody. Everybody doesn't need one. Not everybody cares about graphics as much as I do, or maybe you, the person watching this, does. But yeah, I think it was like for every one PS4 Pro that got sold, there was 5 PS4s in the world. So that's like 1 in 6. That's I'm not thinking of the number right now, but it's not going to make developers target that and leave everybody else behind. PS5 base players will still get the high quality experience that they're getting today, I truly believe. But then if you're not a PlayStation gamer, if you're a PC gamer, like I was saying, they target that PlayStation first and then they work on the PC version many times. So if that's true, then that means that they're going to be targeting a higher profile GPU now whenever they're making these games, which means if you do have a beefy card, if you've got the 4090 or even the 7900 XTX, you're going to probably see games take better advantage of your graphics card. So this is a boon for everybody. Even the Switch 2 that's rumored, and maybe we'll find out about it soon too, it's supposedly got, this NVIDIA chipset, it's got ray tracing, it's got DLSS and all that kind of stuff to help enhance it. It may be better at ray tracing than the Series S is, but, it's all going to affect each other because a lot of these games are made for all these systems. And so the beefier performance target we can give them in the console end, the higher it's going to raise all the other ships. And we've been in this transition phase as ray tracing starts to slowly phase in over the last, maybe 5-6 years since NVIDIA first had the RTX cards come out. At first we had a couple of example games like old Quake running on RTX, and I think there was like a Minecraft thing. I don't know if there was ever more than a demo. I don't know if it ever became official or not. Not really a Minecraft player. But over the years, we've seen different games start to support it, and now we've got games like Cyberpunk and Alan Wake that have taken it so far that they're not even using any rasterization at all. They're fully ray traced, aka path traced, where every single pixel on that screen is from a ray, no more rasterization whatsoever in the mix. Or at least that's what they tell us, if they're being honest about it truly being path traced. And so if this is happening in the PC space, the console space is happening right alongside it, right? And so if we want to see more path trace games in PC, then that means we need to get the consoles to a higher performance target on ray tracing so that they can actually be somewhat reasonably similar experiences when they're developing them. Developers don't want to have a wildly different experience between their top performance target and their bottom performance target usually. And so one way we can think about the progression of ray tracing specifically through the PlayStation line is the PS4 obviously didn't do ray tracing. PS5, it can do a little bit of ray tracing. You can kind of use some effects here and there. You're going to take a big performance hit. You might have to run your game at 30 FPS, but you can kind of sort of run ray tracing, right? And what the PS5 Pro gets us is, yes, it can actually run ray tracing. It can actually, you can turn all the ray tracing on. It can run at 60 FPS. It can run at a decent resolution. And you can have all those things you want and the ray tracing. You can have the quality mode and the performance mode turned on at the same time, basically is the dream here. And you can get that high quality experience from your console, and the rest of gaming will benefit, I believe. But now, the PS6 might be the place where we say, hey, path tracing is now a potential thing we can do on consoles. It's not just a PC thing anymore. When that day gets here, that will be exciting because the end of rasterization, the move to full ray tracing completely in the pipeline, means that we as gamers will be hitting a point where most of us won't be able to tell the difference between any improvements that come after it. The PS6, if it can do ray tracing, if it is on par with the 5090 or whatever comes out this year from NVIDIA, if it is even remotely close to that, and you can get path trace games standard as the norm, then graphics is a solved problem. Now we can actually really focus on improving gameplay and physics. So many other elements of the game that often get ignored because of graphics. I love great graphics, but I love games. Gameplay is number one always. Graphics is a nice to have second, of course. And so I am excited about the end of the chase for realism in games. When we can say, yeah, every game looks amazing, then people can just focus on being creative and making great experiences. And now maybe if that PS6 can do path tracing, then maybe that means it can only do it at 30 FPS, kind of like we're seeing right now with PS5. So maybe there's going to be a PS6 Pro that can do, full path tracing at 60 FPS, or maybe in 120 is becoming more the norm at that point. But yeah, in terms of the PS5 Pro, for right now, today, it means that we can experience the ray tracing and global illumination and all these other nice features that the PC gamers have been getting to have fun with, but consoles been kind of missing out on. And now that fun the PC gamers are having is at a premium. PC costs way more than a console, right? To get the level of experience you get on a PS5, you have to spend probably at least $1,200 on a comparable PC, probably even more than that. But we're not going to get $2,000, $3,000 PC experiences on a $500 console. So people need to have realistic expectations for what a pro console should cost. A lot of people think, oh, it's the 5.5, if you will. It's the mid-gen refresh. But people need to stop thinking about it so much as being just more of the same. It is a premium console. It is a niche thing for people that really love graphics and want to have the best experience and are willing to pay extra for it. So I personally think if it was a $700, maybe even an $800 console, if that meant we got the experiences that we want from it, the ones that I've been describing here, then I'd be willing to pay that. People would pay more than that for just the GPU alone in their PC. And so honestly, I hope they don't release the PS5 Pro at $500, because that means that they didn't make it as powerful as it could have been, because it's not supposed to be a device to replace the base model. It's an addition to. It is, a nice to have premium edition. And then also, over time, manufacturing should go down in price, even though Microsoft has told us the reason they did the S and the X is because they don't think that they're going to ever be able to get the X down to $300 like the S was. So they had to target it specifically from the get-go. The PS5 came out at $400 if you go with the all-digital version, which I don't have that version. I wouldn't suggest buying it, but technically you can say the PS5 came out for $400, right? I think that, eventually, somehow, Sony's going to figure it out, and they'll be able to get that down to $300. Will it ever be another $100 console? Those days are probably over. But they can probably get it down a little bit cheaper than it is over the next couple years as they continue to improve the processes they use, as they go down to a smaller node on the APU for it. And the whole point in the Pro, as I see it, is to take advantage of those cost savings to allow us to get what would have been a $1,500 console back in 2020 now for a reasonable price of, let's say, $600 to $800. Which is, I think, the range that's going to be in. I don't really think it's going to be less than $599 in the US. But hopefully later this week, if the rumors are true, we will be finding out for sure. Hopefully we'll get a peek at it. We'll get a look at some games for it. We'll find out maybe a price and a date, or maybe they'll trickle that out over the next few months. We'll just have to wait and see there. But if the rumors are true and the leaks are true, and with Sony doing a takedown notice on Moore's Law is dead, it sounds like it's probably true. The PS5 is almost surely coming out by the end of this year. And so that was my very first YouTube video ever. This is my new channel. Still thinking about what the name is going to be, but I will have it figured out by the time I record the intro to this. Do a little movie magic here. But yeah, it's YouTube. I hate to say these words, but the whole liking and subscribing and stuff, like, I am starting from ground zero here, so any kind of support you can show me would be appreciated. If you can help spread the word, if you like what I have to say here, I plan to post more videos with opinions like these and analysis on the gaming industry and the state of gaming. Looking at where the future of things are going. I have been studying the game industry since the mid-90s, when I thought I was going to be a game developer once upon a time. I went down a different path into more traditional software development, but I've still had a love of gaming and an obsession with how it's made, how all these engines have evolved over the years, how the technology has improved, and I love talking about it, and I will be here to share more of it with you in the future. Thanks.